Oh, good evening, everyone. Ari and I are drinking already because tonight's episode is about overcoming seasonal depression. Woo! We honestly spent like the last 15 minutes just laughing over randomness. So we hope that you're ready for our energy tonight because we might be a little bit silly, although we'll still have, plenty of opportunity to talk about the seriousness of um, seasonal depression. So before we get started, though, Ari, how are you doing?
I am in actually excellent spirits despite the season and despite everything else. I'm actually in a pretty good mood.
Right?
I'm
I
still in my pajamas.
Oh God, me too. I literally have been in pajamas all day long today. Actually, that's been me like the last several days, but that's besides the point. I've been at this place over the past probably since a bit before the election where I've just been laughing over everything. I feel like we're at this point where we are just so not dumbfounded by the things that we're encountering that we're just like, what joke is going to happen today? So that's kind of where I've been, but obviously that would be a whole episode in of itself. Um, so tonight's episode is overcoming seasonal depression, and we're both going to talk about our differing and some similar experiences with it, of course. Before we get started, though, I would like to read our show's mission statement. Okay. So many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and not know how to address such things. This fray, of course, has gotten worse with the rise of social media because everyone is able to share in this collective trauma as it goes viral in real time. And that collective grief and outrage just becomes this shared building experience. So, that begs the question of what can we do to mend the communities that have seen considerable tragedy, especially those who have had that tragedy initiated by privileged groups who may not be aware of their personal involvement. So, through this show together, our goal is to restitch the tapestry using conversation, creativity, and action with the purpose of educating as well. Like, we're learning things, and we hope that through our experience learning, we can, in a way, perpetuate that learning as well. All right. And of course, since we're focusing on groups of people, like people who do struggle with mental health are often, well, especially depending on what mental health struggle it is, these are varying groups of people who often experience invalidation, isolation, misinterpretation, so on and so forth. And I think we're going to talk about how it affects a large swath of people tonight with regard to seasonal depression. All right. So, Ari, would you like to start us off by honestly explaining what seasonal affective disorder is for all of us?
So seasonal affect disorder, according to the Mayo Clinic, is a type of depression that's related to the change in season. So it begins and ends at the same time each year. So if you're like most people with SAD or seasonal affect disorder, your symptoms start in the fall and continue in the winter months, sapping your energy and making you feel moody. Less often, SAD causes depression in also the spring or early summer. So you can get it in the winter months into or early fall into the winter months, or you can get it spring into early summer. So the show that we're covering is going to cover the winter months.
Well, and that's I think the seasonal depression that we often experience the most, but between both of us. I mean, I have experienced it in the spring once in a while, but it's not as often as the later months. And I think a lot of it has to do with the holidays, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at length as well. Um,
Uh,
so, oh, go ahead,
oh,
Ari.
sorry. I was just going to go over signs and symptoms that you
Go
may
for it.
may include so feeling depressed most of the day, nearly every day, losing interest in activities you once enjoyed, having low energy, having problems with sleeping, experiencing changes in appetite or weight, feeling sluggish or agitated, having difficulty concentrating, feeling hopeless, worthless, or guilty, having frequent thoughts of death and or suicide. So heavy things associated with seasonal affect disorder.
And like I don't think you mentioned this yet, but the fall and winter seasonal affect disorder has also very specific associations as well, like oversleeping, appetite changes, like especially when it comes to craving foods which are high in carbohydrates, weight gain, tiredness, or low energy. I know for me, I get really bad in the winter months with oversleeping. Um, and it's because like I go from the school year like getting up relatively early and getting used to that, and then after the time shift happens, like when we start doing daylight savings time again, or when we fall back or whatever you want to call it, that's what really gets me because it gets dark way earlier, and then like the sun doesn't come up until later, and like I feel like this very debilitating sense of lethargicness that just doesn't go away until like March or April when finally it starts to lift. So what
Yeah.
symptoms do you struggle with, Ari?
So with sleeping, I have kind of a weird sleep schedule. Like it comes like in weird bouts. Like I'll stay up really late, like until like 5 o'clock in the morning or so, and then I'll sleep until like 11 a.m. Like so like I'll stay up until really late at night and I'll be like staring at my like computer or my like phone, and then I'll sleep until like really late, and then I'll like sleep periodically throughout the day, and like I'll fall asleep at random times throughout the day. Like my sleep schedule is just like really wonky during the winter. I fall asleep at random times. Like I just feel tired randomly. I feel more lethargic at random times. I feel like during at night I'm more awake because I feel like I'm a night owl, but I feel like during the daytime I don't ever really wake up. Like I feel like everything is just really discombobulating, and like I'm not quite like I don't feel like myself, you know what I mean? Like it's just everything is just like not good. It's sort of like that symptom of depression. You never quite wake up, but you never quite go to sleep.
Yep. Like the sleep isn't fulfilling,
Right.
and that becomes really problematic because during the day when you're supposed to be alert and energized, like that's not present. Like you just don't have that because you don't reach that what is it, REM sleep, where you're like in your deepest portion of sleep that is that rejuvenatory portion of sleep.
And then when I do dream, like I have like really unsettling dreams where I feel like I'm being chased, or that I'm having like really aggressive dreams, or like having like really just unsettling dreams where like I'm just being watched, or like, you know what I mean? Like you're just, it's not like a very good, I'm not getting very good sleep.
Mhm.
And then when I eat, I do tend to crave carbs. Like I tend to crave like sugary things. Like I tend to crave like ice cream. That's one thing I crave like a lot of during the winter time. Even though it's cold out, like I'll tend to crave ice cream or chocolate. Uh, that's something I noticed I crave a lot during the winter. Like I try not to keep chocolate in the house during the winter time, but like right, I did ask my sister to get ice cream tonight, and I was like, oh, I really should have done that, but like, oh, it's really good, and I can't help myself. But like, I have been keeping my weight at a pretty steady diet because like I have I maintain my weight pretty well. Uh, so like I'm not overeating or not, so like I'm maintaining weight, but I'm not losing weight. But like I would like to lose weight, obviously,
Right.
but like
For me, the cravings are very much like pumpkin things. I know I'm basic like that, but like I definitely crave pumpkin often. Sweet things like maple, like for some reason in the winter months, like if it's a food that requires maple syrup, like French toast or pancakes, like I could eat it morning, noon, and night. Like it's like perpetual recurring breakfast all the time for me.
Me
So
too. I've been eating more pancakes lately. Oh my god. It's been like I had pancakes the last probably twice in the last 2 weeks. Like 2 or 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and I never eat pancakes. And I'm like, what is my deal? Because I'm not a big pancake person, but I was like, I have been craving pancakes.
it
Like with
could be the syrup you're craving.
it could be the syrup, but it could be just the rich carbs and with the syrup itself. And just like the carb maple syrup combo, just heavy on the carbs. I don't know. But
Oh, another one for me, potatoes. Granted, this is all year round, but I can destroy some potatoes. Any form of potato, like hash browns, tater tots, French fries, scalloped potatoes, cheesy baked potatoes, regular baked potatoes.
I have a bunch of potatoes in my fridge that you can have.
Oh my God, don't tempt me because ooh, ooh. Yeah, those are my weakness, definitely, because I don't know, there's just something like they're not sweet, but they're like very savory.
Yeah.
And
Those aren't bad for you. Like potatoes are actually pretty good for you.
I mean, it depends on what you have with them. For me, there's always cheese involved typically.
Oh
So
yeah.
that complicates it just a little bit.
Killer Rodan said he likes to have a lot of coffee. Um, I have about 20 cups of coffee, remnants of coffee cups in the back of my car. Like my sister was like, "Why do you have a bunch of coffee?" And I was like, "You don't, I didn't drink them every all at
It's like,
once, but
don't ask.
but like I go down to the channel and I go writing every day, and I've been going down to write every day for probably the last 2 weeks, and I just they just built up, and it's sort of like the cark to dead carcasses left behind, and it's really sad to look at. But yeah, a lot of I've been craving coffee, and I it's really bad with having bipolar. You're not supposed to have a lot of coffee because it can set you off into some mania. So I have to really watch how much coffee I drink. But yeah, I crave coffee
Um,
really bad in the
Well,
wintertime.
and it also sounds like you've made it part of your routine too, so you have that association, like, because when we get into routines, we grow comfortable with those types of things too. So I do want to tune into the chat box because I feel like we've been gushing about food. So we have David here, Igny's here, Killer Rodan is here. I think I saw Arby up earlier as well. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Also, thank you, Arby, earlier for complimenting my reading. I really appreciate it. It went very
Igni,
it went
I
very
will
well.
never drink decaf. You can never make me drink decaf. I will never,
Oh
ever,
God.
ever drink decaf.
Um, so I was a barista for about 10 years, and a lot of people would always tell me that there is literally no difference in taste between decaf and regular. Oh God, there is. There is. Like, so first and foremost, decaf tastes more burnt, like a little bit more toasty. Not bad necessarily. Like I've drank decaf before, but obviously that's only if I'm craving the taste of coffee. Like when I drink coffee, I drink it out of the habit of doing it in the morning, out of the taste, and out of its effect, because I do want some sort of caffeinated effect. sort of, not too much of one, but because
Right.
I've started having to watch that myself. So, but yeah, coffee is one that really does get me too, especially like on a cold winter morning. Like, what am I kidding? Like all day, not just the morning.
David said there's a four-letter Jewish word for decaf. It's called neva.
uh, Oh my goodness. So all right, so we really focused a lot on like that sluggishness, that like being lethargic. Like what other notable symptoms do you have when it comes to
Um,
seasonal affect disorder?
I so I tend to get into fights with my family a lot more. I just because I tend to be more like because I get more agitated, I tend to like just I tend to not feel well, and that I tend to just feel unwell. Like I just don't feel right, and like I tend to like not maintain my relationships very well with my family members, and that I'm not upkeeping my relationship well with them, and that I don't maintain a sense of my own well-being.
Hmm.
So I tend to fall below a threshold, and so my relationships with my friends suffer, and my relationships with my family suffer, and it's noticeable. You can tell when I start to fall into that seasonal of the seasonal depression because uh well one I stop showering, and I stop maintaining basic levels of hygiene, and uh I stop just doing the basics of maintaining, like I stop doing my laundry, I stop maintaining my living space, I stop doing creative endeavors, just normal things that I would do usually, I stop doing those things. And like I'm not even sure how I would like reconcile it from like a regular depression, other than that it just happens during a certain time of year, and that it just
Well, it also sounds as though like I mean, you already have the regular depression. Perhaps that regular depression is amplified
mhm,
by the season, by the associations. I know for me, like I tend to have very dissociative behavior
yeah,
when there's seasonal depression, and I think a lot of it has to do with the holidays for me because I have a pretty complicated past with the holidays, and I'll talk about that a little bit more once we get to um, the questions toward the end. Well, probably toward the midpoint, you know. But like that, like for me as well, like it's affected my relationships with people, whether it be friendships or family. In fact, like one of my greatest vices is I'm always apologizing for everything. Normally, but in the winter time, like it's amplified times 10. Like I am apologizing for existing, for taking up space, for not getting good enough gifts for people, for like it just it seems heavier if that makes sense. There
yeah,
it always feels like something is sitting on my shoulders, but I'm still able to stand for the rest of the year. In the winter time, like, I feel like I'm, like, just being crushed by that weight, if that makes sense. So, it's a very strange sensation, that's for sure.
yeah. This year, at least with my family, we're not doing gifts at all. We've actually made a pact that we're not doing gifts at all, so that's kind of relieved some of that like pressure to
That
like
performative, yeah, pressure.
and we're just gonna take a vacation together, but there was pressure to, like, go on this vacation amidst COVID,
Mhm.
and so because I was like, I didn't know if I really wanted to go to that, but, like, um, I was like, "Well, uh, I guess, I should do that because it's with the family," but, like, being with family can sometimes be, you get with a lot of personalities and, like, it's a lot you get you get a lot of, like, personalities in one room, and it's, like, a lot of headbutting happens and a lot of, like, um it's more during Thanksgiving rather than Christmas. Christmas tends to be more, like, even in my family because, like, we have made it that way over the years, but, like, when I was younger, it was more agitated, but, like, Thanksgiving, there's, like, cooking going on and, like, there's, like, a high pressure to, like, make a good meal and, like, so Thanksgiving has traditionally been, like, a, "Get out of the kitchen, get out of the kitchen, ah,
People
ah."
invading space, yep, yep.
So, like
Like oh, go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I know for me, like, in the kind of going back to that dissociation, I'm the kind of person normally, I love staying connected, like, I love social media, I love, like, electronics, I love calling like, I love being able to stay connected with people. Because of seasonal affect disorder, it's the one time of year where I want to essentially go off the grid sometimes. Like, I'll, like, get this thought in my mind where, like, I just wanna kind of, like, disappear for a while or, n like, not like, sometimes I won't communicate with, like, it's mostly family, typically, I won't communicate as well. So then like, there's a lot of, like, misinterpretation that happens when really I'm just kind of withdrawing and decompressing, after all the social like, 'cause, for school, like, I have so many social, and performative obligations that once that's over with in early December, I'm just like, you know? And, like, I think this year, it's gonna be a little bit better because I've been getting therapy and I'm on medication now, and there's been an improvement of sorts.
Mhm.
Um, but I know, like, with, like, the election and all the politics and the pandemic and stuff like that, like, I think I'm gonna really have to, at times, probably keep myself in check and be like, "Donnie, alright," like, "Donnie, like, communicate with people, like, don't fall into that habit of wanting to, like, hide under a rock," because that's not going to, work out very well.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of pressure during Thanksgiving.
Right. Oh, and Iggy just said, I loathe Thanksgiving, sort of. Call me grouchy, but the whole neighborhood reeks of turkey dinners outside. It's, like, overpowering, and I'm like, "This is not what nature smells like."
Right, and it's especially bad for me being vegetarian, cause like, I don't eat meat, so, like, there's this overpowering I'm like I just am, like, kinda, like, I'm not sure how to deal with all of it. Like, it was, like, fine when I was growing up, but then when I got to a certain age, it was like, you know
Mhm.
but it's not, like, bad necessarily, it's just, like, I have to, like and my family's been really good about it as I've gotten older,
Well,
but,
that's
like,
good.
there was a time where it was like, "You're just gonna have sides, right?" And I'm like, "Cool."
Yeah. Yeah, like, I can imagine, like, some families would get, like, really their butt hurt over it. I can't think of a better word. Because like some people, like when like if they go out of their way to make something and then you're like, oh, like I don't eat that. Like, hey, like they get upset when really I think it should be them that should feel like, oh, well, I should have understood and acknowledged your
Well
dietary preferences.
Well, and then you get the families. It's not so much in my family, but like you get families that you have the uncle that comes over and they're the Trump supporter, or you get the family that comes over and they're the homophobic uncle, or
Thankfully, I don't have to deal with that as much anymore because my family has mostly come around. But obviously, with politics recently, like that adds a layer of complication. Let's just say, I basically just tell my family like, hey, don't initiate a political conversation because I will say something. Like I will respond. I'm not that person that'll just be like, like just eating in the corner, not saying anything. I'm that loudmouth that will be like, really, why do you think that? Let's have a conversation.
it's just it just adds to but it's depressing. It's depressing to go to those family dinners and have to butt heads with a family member that like
Yeah.
because it's like you're constantly when you do go to those family dinners and you have that family member that does that, it's constantly being reminded that like you have somebody out there who does invalidate you.
Yeah. Killer Rodan. Beat the shit out of homophobic family members.
But like I'm glad I don't have it in my family.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's not in my family, but, like, there are families out there that do have that and do invalidate them,
Oh,
and
for
that it is
sure.
hard, and there are a lot of families that do go through that, so, I my heart goes out to them, and it does add to a level of seasonal depression, so
Well, that's a perfect transition into us talking a little bit more in depth about that too, because like a lot of people don't realize that people in marginalized communities, if they are going to a home where there is like a majority or a group of people that share in some sort of privilege, it's often very difficult for them because those people are very dismissive of the difficult things that those marginalized groups go through. And I know a lot of LGBT people have a difficult time returning home because there's family that may not be accepting, family that might be emotionally, physically abusive. Um, like isolation, forced participation in uncomfortable social situations. I know people like who are neurodiverse, for example, people who may be on the autistic spectrum being forced into participating in uncomfortable social exchanges is extremely overwhelming and could cause a variety of different things, whether it be trauma or meltdowns or. And I remember often, especially when I was growing up, going to family functions, and there were just like people making homophobic comments and people being like, well, you better not turn out that way. And of course that was before I came out, so in the back of my mind I was just like, shit, like and it was very sad in a way. um Yeah, like David says, the majority think that, or kind of like have this expectation of, why can't you just be normal, be like everyone else? Why different? And the thing is, people think that being different means that we are doing it for attention. And it's like, no, that's like, trust me, the attention that we get for being the other or different isn't usually good attention. So why, like, it's not something that's craved. Shayna's here. Hi, Shayna. It's good to see you.
Hi, Shayna.
So, I guess the point that we're making with that is that for those groups of people, there is an added layer of difficulty that's really difficult to navigate. And I know for me, I am anticipating having very difficult conversations about politics because, um, due to decisions that family has made, like voting decisions, I've been having to have conversations about, like, well, why did you make that choice, knowing that I'm that it could affect me negatively, right? And then of course I get the response of, well, why are you always making it about you, you know? And I'm just like, all right, okay.
It's like, cool, cool. It's not always about me, but like maybe you could like not make it always about you.
Right. Like, sorry that me potentially losing employment rights, marriage equality, and a whole ton of other things doesn't affect you directly. Or lot like access to healthcare, you know, all of that jazz.
I always get reminded that I have bipolar when I go to family functions, and it's like, I know I have bipolar.
What, like, in what way do they remind you of that? Do they just bring it up, or is it?
It's sort of like it's sort of like, you know you have bipolar, and it's like that I like have forgotten somehow that I have bipolar.
Uh, yeah, I just casually forgot.
That I like that I like my sis it's usually my sister who is out of state that will that I like have somehow forgotten that I have bipolar and that I like live my life casually as though I don't have bipolar and I that I like live as though I don't have the diagnosis and that I am um am living this like carefree life as though I don't have a diagnosis under that I'm like
Well, I guess my question would be, how does she expect you to live?
and that's what I'm saying is like how should I behave as though I'm sick all the time?
Like, does she expect you to be, like, locked in a closet, like, rocking back and forth, you know, like, it could like, it honestly sounds like there's just a lack of knowledge when it comes to bipolar disorder, like, people are fully functional and capable of living
A
have
functional life.
right, exactly. Like, obviously, there for many needs to be, like, medication, maybe therapy, but, you know, like, my therapist told me that there are a lot of, um people who are bipolar who don't ever really take any action with getting assistance for their mental health because it doesn't affect them drastically. So it's a spectrum and people don't realize that.
And the fact that I take medication and go to therapy shows that like I take an active role in my mental health.
Right.
And
And you're taking
so
responsibility for it too.
right. So I don't I don't
Yeah,
know.
it really does sound like a lack of knowledge. And I've had a similar conversation with family too. Like when like if the topic of mental health ever comes up, like there's always this assumption of like, well, what are you sad about now? Or like why do you always have to look at everything negatively? It's nothing's triggering it. Like nothing always triggers depression. Nothing. It's a chemical imbalance in my brain, you know.
But that was just one time. I don't know. Maybe
If
I'm just
people have this assumption that we sit here hovering over this sad button that we just keep pushing for the sake of pushing it, like sad, 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 sad. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Like maybe it was just the one time. Like I don't know. Like it, it just seems like yeah, I get reminded that I don't know. It was just some really weird and I don't know. It stuck with
Well,
me.
like, yeah. I mean, if I were in your place and I mean, no, I really haven't been told anything like that, honestly. But if I were in your place, like, I would probably be like, do you think that I'm not like acknowledging it? Or, you know, something to that effect?
Yeah, it was really weird. Like I'm like, I don't know. It seems like whenever I seem like I'm not doing okay, the first response is put her in the hospital. And it's like, most people do outpatient. And like that's how it works. Like most people don't go inpatient like
Right.
when Like, that's not how
That's like
society
for
works.
that's like for extreme situations, like emergency situations.
Right, like, I'm not, like, a danger to myself or others usually. Like, I
Yeah.
I mean, there have only been, like, a couple times where I was, like, in an extreme case where I needed to go into the hospital, but, like, most of the time, I'm not, like, in that terrible of a situation where I need to go inpatient.
Well, and the thing is, like, I think you've developed a considerable amount of self-awareness in knowing when you're veering in that direction so you can, like, communicate that with people.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, and of course, that happened based on experience, but it sounds like your family they sound like they're getting really caught up in those 2 events, you know, and that just it's like kind of like a feedback loop in their mind, like, "Oh, like, this is Ari,"
And I've had depression
you
that's
know?
gotten so low where I've gone inpatient before,
Mhm.
and, like, I've had, like, bipolar depression that's so low that I was suicidal, and I was like, "Yeah, I feel like I need to go," and, like but, like, I just ended up sleeping for, like, 18 hours a day, like
Well, yeah, like, it really it changes your routine drastically. And
Yeah,
to add on top of that, like this like we were talking about that seasonal affect disorder that just like if you're going through an episode at that time, like it can really make it worse,
yeah.
you know. Um David, that speaks to me that someone who just wants to keep mental health far away, somebody who makes comments like that. Either it's hospitalization with Nurse Ratched or you don't have anything. I actually just watched that show. It's really good.
Oh, man, you've been put on almost 5150? 5150 is, like, the worst. I've been put on
Oh,
5150 before. It is, like it sucks so bad. Are you in California,
yeah,
Shayna?
Yeah, I think Shayna lives in California.
Man, I've been on 5150 before. It sucks so bad. That
Yeah.
when I got put in the hospital in LA, it was like they put me on 5150 and, like, first of all, they 5150 is, when they put you on hospitalization against your will. Uh, it's basically like for mental disorders, they put you in the hospital against your will.
Mhm. Either because you're probably a threat to yourself or to others, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Like, especially um if you're experiencing an episode, I can imagine that would be very unsettling, especially if like reality is being seen differently.
yeah. Uh, Oh, it's not fun. It's not fun being on 5150. I don't recommend it.
I'm gonna probably slaughter your name again because that seems to be what I normally do, but Lagiacrus the Terminator, maybe I pronounced that correctly this time. It's good to see you. Carrie Hoffheimer, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. It's good to see you. Psych wards have left me with more trauma than anything else in my life.
No kidding.
Ari, do you want to speak to that a little bit? If you're comfortable, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've been to, like I lived in Seattle, and I was in a psych ward in Seattle, and then I was in LA, and I didn't end up staying in a psych ward necessarily. I was put on 5150, and I stayed in the hospital there, and they had a bed for me there, and then, in my hometown, I stayed in the psych ward there. So I've been to, like, a couple different places, and I've seen a couple different, like I've seen, like, how they do it in, like, different like, how small towns do it as opposed to, like, big cities do it. So, like, it's just it's different how they do it in small towns as opposed to, like, big cities. Like, big cities tend to, like, care less and, like, they treat you differently than they do in small towns. Like, in small towns, they tend to, like, they tend to care more, and the nursing staff tend to, like, show more care with the patients than they do in big cities. Like, big cities, it's a lot of, like, shuffling around, and the patient staff tend to, like, shuffle through, and, like, there are, like, you don't tend to, like, get a sense of, like, where you are as far as, like, who's coming through and who's on staff, and, like, you're just kinda, like, you're just there.
It almost sounds kinda like an assembly line of, get people in, get people out kind of a thing,
Well,
which
it's
I
like
can't
that.
imagine is good.
It's kinda like that no matter what. They're kinda just trying to get you to come down from what you're experiencing no matter where you are. Um, and so they want you in and out as quickly as possible within, like, a week or 2. Like, they don't want you there more than that.
Yeah. Aw, Shayna. Yes, it is cathartic and scary talking about such things.
So, I mean, like, so beds are pretty limited in mental hospitals because they wanna do outpatient as much as possible, like, honestly, so they tend to, like, they want you in and out, like, I mean, that's basically it, like, if they can get you outpatient, they will.
So do you think that is a result of mental health still not being taken as seriously as physical health?
I think so, yeah, like, you have to be pretty serious about, like, you have to kinda show, like, serious signs of, like, that like, you're a danger to yourself or others, to be put in a mental hospital. Um,
Yeah.
like, that they and, so, yeah, I mean So, I mean, and, like, sometimes I don't understand, like, how it's like, for me, like, I didn't think that, like, I was, like, so far gone until, like, I thought back on it later. So, like, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me until I really thought about it and, like, thought about the repercussions of my actions and, like, really thought things through, but, like, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is, like, really serious." Like, what I did was, like, really serious, and, like, I could have ended up really hurt, like, in LA, like, I just, like, went from Michigan to California. I just, like, got on a plane and just started wandering around a building and just, like and I did that for, like, 16 hours, and, like like, that was, like, bad. Like that was, like, really bad, like, I don't know, yeah, like, I did that in the winter time.
Well, I can imagine when you started coming down from it and realizing that you were not near
No, yeah.
home.
Yeah, I realized that on my own, like, I didn't need a doctor to tell me, like, "Hey, this is bad." I didn't need the police to tell me this is bad, I, like, realized that on my own. But, like, wintertime, I'm usually, like, manic, I'm not depressive, so that's the difference for me is, like, I tend to go manic instead of depressive. I tend to go depressive in the summertime rather than I do the wintertime,
Mhm.
but, like, traditionally, when I was younger, I would go depressive in the wintertime, so but as I've gotten older, December is my I tend to, like, dip low, and then I go high
Mhm.
because
Interesting.
because I dip so low, and then I get paranoid, and then I dip manic
Mhm.
because
It's
I'm
like a
just
slingshot effect.
right.
Interesting. Hmm. So, let me take a look at our notes really quickly.
Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. We just totally blew that out
Oh,
of the
yeah,
water.
oops. I mean, we still have a good amount of time left. I think we could answer some of these questions. So the first question is, okay, so we already kind of covered like what symptoms we experience, right? Let's see. We already talked about, okay, so do the holidays make seasonal depression worse or better for you?
I think the holidays make seasonal depression worse for me, because I feel like they amp it up. Like, I feel like anything you're experiencing, I feel like the holidays make everything a little bit worse. Like I was saying, um, I feel like I feel like my mental health gets worse, slightly worse around like Christmas. I feel like I experienced a manic episode around Christmas because I was just under a lot of stress. So I necessarily wasn't experiencing seasonal affect disorder, but like I was experiencing a lot of mental health issues because of
Hmm.
Christmas. Um, and I experience a lot of depression like around Thanksgiving because it's just a poor time of year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, when like I do find the um, family, the consuming, the commercialization, the religious aspects, all of those aspects seem like they're really hyping up Christmas, and it really stresses me out. I know I'll talk about that more in a minute, but I think one of my big issues with the holidays is my one grandmother who was abusive. She was obsessed with Christmas, and I have some good memories of that, but it got to a point where Christmas became more like this stressful chore where she would have like 3 trees put up, decorations outside, an entire room of a village layout of like Christmas stuff, and it like all I remember is it just being like me being getting yelled at the whole time, do this, do that, and like just that like association and repetition of that constantly, like I think that really ruined Christmas for me in many ways. It's getting like, now that I have my own home and everything, it's getting a little bit better, but I know that it gets really taxing on my friends and my partner because almost everybody I know, except for me, loves the hell out of Christmas. Christmas is their only shining part, especially of 2020. And for me, I'm just like, meh, Christmas. Like, okay, like woo. So I do think that the commercialization gets really overwhelming too, because everything seems like is all about consumption, and everything is about like performing, getting the right gifts for people, like making people satisfied with you. And like I feel like there's a lot of risk in doing all of that, because what if you don't, what if you disenfranchise people around you, so on and so forth. So, like, don't get me wrong, like, I can put up a Christmas tree and enjoy it being pretty. In fact, I decorated one the other day. I even posted a picture of, for those of you who do not know, I own the Mothra page on Facebook. I posted a picture of my Mothra Christmas tree because I have, let me show everybody. Let me see. I have Mothra at the top of my Christmas tree. Like, November 1st struck, and my partner and my roommate were like, we're going crazy with Christmas right now. And I shouldn't use the word crazy because that's ableist language. Okay, so they got very hyped up about Christmas. There we go. And I was just like, well, if I'm going to be obligated to participate, then I'm going to do something that appeals to my interests. So that's how I kind of got through that. So anyway, I went off on a huge tangent with that. So
That's great though. I love your tree.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody on my Mothra page seemed to really like it too, so I felt pretty proud. I was just like, okay, like I feel pretty proud of that. My nerd tree. I don't need no damn star. I don't need no damn angel. All I need is a moth. So, okay, let's focus. We have like 10 minutes left, and I know we've touched on quite a few of these questions already. But how do you combat your own seasonal depression? And what do you want to do this year to help combat that?
What do you do?
Well, for me, A couple of things I try to do. I try to stay creative because I know if I get creatively stagnant, then all I'm going to do is just zone out and be lethargic. Um, my goal this year is to try to exercise more often. I've been in the habit over the past couple of weeks of like trying to exercise at least 2 to 3 times a week. Um, and it's
Oh,
been
I haven't exercised at all.
prior to that, I hadn't exercised in like months, and I like, of course, the first day that I did it, I was just like, I'm dying, you know. So like, my goal is to try to do that, maybe to just help my energy a little bit, and I think it might also combat because I know like with the medication that I'm on right now, I get it makes me really tired sometimes. It makes me tired during the day, but it makes me have like insomnia at night. So it's like great, you know, great. So I'm hoping that the exercise during the day helps build my energy during the day, but make me tired enough to want to sleep at night too. So,
My
because if I
therapist would love you.
oh, keep in mind, like these are very lofty goals that I'm giving myself. I do this a lot. I'll be like, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this, and this, and I might do two things.
I'm like that too.
I know that's why we get along so well. One of the many reasons why we get along so well. We do like, and the thing is, one other problem that I have with that list of things is like I will end up not doing the whole list, and then I'll end up self-deprecating over it, and I'll be like,
Oh, yeah, me too.
geez, Donnie, like, way to be an asshat. Of course, I say way worse things than that, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah, and then you get into the body image issues, and then you get into the other stuff, and then it just spirals out of
yeah,
control, and then you're
it's
just like,
yeah, a snowball. It's
"Ah."
like a snowball effect, but um, yeah, I really think that what I'm gonna do, especially over, because the thing is, what really gets me during the holidays is school ends, so I don't have school to keep me occupied. So it's like going from working like 60 to 70 hours a week to literally doing nothing. And that like that's such a drastic shift for me, you know. So I don't have that one key thing to keep me busy. So then I just spend all my time thinking, wallowing, you know, like eating.
Working on your next manuscript of poetry?
That's what I'm hoping to do actually. It's 25% done, so if I really work diligently, I might be able to get 50% of it done.
Ah.
So how about you? What do you do to kind of counteract your seasonal affect disorder?
I write poetry about how sad I am.
Yes, yes.
And, I make YouTube videos, that's a big thing.
Staying creative.
Yeah, and, I recently added tarot cards to my YouTube videos, and that has, like, kept me very happy. I love doing tarot card stuff now.
I
Uh,
love that you do it too because as the viewer, like I didn't like I try to apply it to my own experiences too. Like, okay, like, you know, it's
um,
awesome.
yeah, so and, I watch, shows with my sister Jessica.
Mhm.
We watch stuff on Netflix. We're a Netflix family, we don't watch stuff on Hulu, even though I wanna watch Hulu shows so bad. We have a Hulu subscription. Why don't we watch stuff on Hulu? I don't know, but
I
she's, like, not a Hulu person. I wanna be a Hulu person.
I'm strictly a CBS All Access person because all of the Star Trek series are on there, and that's what I'm watching 90% of the time.
I have tried to get into CBS All Access, and the streaming service is, like, so glitchy on my TV. It's
It
so
can
glitchy.
be.
It's so glitchy. It makes me sad. I tried watching Picard on it, and it was just like it would stop, and then it would go, and it would stop, and then it would go, and I would just be like, "I can't do this. I can't do this, Picard. I can't." It
It
makes
used
me
to do that
sad.
to me. Now it's been working pretty well for me lately, thankfully, because I've been watching Star Trek Discovery.
It makes me sad. I couldn't do it.
Oh.
I would watch, like I watched, like, 3 episodes like that, and I just, like I can't watch glitchy. Like, I had trouble I tried watching Moby like that too, which was a streaming movie service, and I had
Mhm.
to cancel it because, like, I don't do glitchy. I don't do glitchy.
Well, it makes it cumbersome and frustrating because it's like you wanna watch the whole story and you can't do it when it's being disjointed by something. Ugh.
The other thing that I do, that I have been trying to do is I have been since I have, membership to Anytime Fitness, I have been trying to go work out and get on the exercise bike,
That's good.
but it is more than a pipe dream at this point, a beautiful dream that I
Well,
have not been able to realize.
see what really like, I know in a way I can relate with that 'cause like, there have been days where I've kind of worked out, but not quite. Because, like, you get to the point of almost doing it, and it seems like you have to climb a mountain, and it's very a again, it kinda comes back to that heaviness that I was talking about. Um, yeah, like, there are just days where we can't. Um, but I do think what we like, and I know that people with a varying degree of mental health difficulties probably do this too, like just finding the opportunity to celebrate even small successes. Like that's so important.
I think what I need to do is just get my yoga mat out and just like do yoga at home and just do like a little bit of yoga every day and just like do like small things instead of just doing like big things.
Well, and I think that's a lot of our personality too, because we're Capricorns. Like we're always trying to do very elaborate things. Um,
Mhm.
because we know we're capable of it. And when we
Right.
don't live up to that, it leads to that disappointment in ourselves. But if we don't focus on those lofty, like almost perfectionist things and just focus on step by step,
Right.
those smaller successes, those will build up and be more meaningful, if that makes sense, and more beneficial too.
Right.
I need to practice what I preach.
Like a little bit of yoga every day instead of like running down to the gym and, like, having to put your workout clothes on and having to, like, get the water bottle and having to, like, drive down to the gym and having to check into the gym and having to sanitize.
Well, yeah, especially right now, I feel like that would be extra. Like there's so many variables.
You have to find the right music, and you have to get I don't wanna do all that.
When I when I lived up in West Branch, because I had a gym membership up there, I would be so gung ho about working out, and then I would find the smallest reason to not do it. I'd step outside and be like, "It's too cold. I don't want to walk outside. I don't want to walk to my car." It was bad. Like,
I'm usually not so lazy. Like, usually I used to be super, like, "I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this," but, like, lately, I've just been like, "Can't do it. I can't do it."
yeah, I get that. So, I guess we can finish off on what
Do
our
you wanna
plan. Oh, go ahead.
do you wanna do poetry?
You read my mind. You always read my mind. Um, we wanted to read some like family themed poetry, like maybe like holiday themed poetry. I don't have any holiday themed poetry specifically, but actually there no wait, this is gonna be the one that I'm gonna probably read. Do you want to read yours first?
Sure. Mine's called Holiday Blues.
Perfect.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm more than ready.
Okay, Holiday Blues. Ah, but now words fail me. They've fallen into the wine glass like a fly, taken up residence on the wall, family abuzz, their usual pecking order, ready to dive bomb as the turkey cooks and recooks under each of us. It's that time of year, glumly, when all is not well, the carolers are out on a sing, causing heads to spin. It'll be like this till January, then the expectation of the new year, new moon, new you, same fat ass on the same treadmill, huffing and puffing, the calories pounded away. But don't think about that today. Instead, honey, drink your wine.
I love that ending. Oh my God, like that, very rebellious. I like that. But like it really it does walk us through like that kind of headspace that we're in during the holidays perfectly. Like it goes from like the hecticness to like that self-loathing to being like, well, F it, you know? I liked that. That was excellent. That was excellent. Um, so this one is a poem from my book. Uh, I think I've performed it before on on probably my other channel, but it's titled "Too Young for an Old Soul," and the reason why I wrote this originally is it's largely about my grandmother who was kind of emotionally abused, well, not kind of, literally emotionally abusive, and the trademark of our holidays were always children should be seen and not heard. And I remember that so distinctly being yelled that being having that yelled at me constantly during the holidays. So too young for an old soul. This morning I looked in the mirror and smiled. A crow's foot formed, maybe a rite of passage. I'm a big kid now. Maybe I should squint more and make those lines deeper. They smile and chuckle at my stories. When I say, I understand, their eyes protest, prod my arrogant youth, because I can't possibly experience these things and be this young. My slightly more religious grandmother would always say, children should be seen and not heard, either when I'd talk with adults or be treated like one. It's dangerous for children to have adult ideas, so break them down and teach them silence. My ex-boyfriend, older than me, scolded me. Think about the consequences of your actions. I'm only a smart-assed 27-year-old, so I'll shut up now. It's okay. I know kiddo is my real name. Can you tell that I have issues with being treated like a child? More like whole subscriptions. Oh, goodness. Goodness, goodness, goodness. Well,
Excellent.
oh, thank you. Ari, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our friends tonight?
Take care of yourself and others. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving no matter what you do and who you're with. Remember that we care about you and your well being and are thinking about you.
I think that sums it up perfectly. I agree completely. Well, everyone, we really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Again, tune in next Friday at the same time. We will be doing our next episode about, let me go look at the list. Our next episode is Poetry Hour. Oh my God, that's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. So, in the meantime, if you would like to go subscribe to Ari's channel, Strange Nothings, please do so. Of course, you'll get an array of really awesome videos that are daily updates, a lot of divination and creativity. Really fun. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, also. And if you missed my poetry reading yesterday and you would like to go check out my Donny Speaks channel, you can see it. It's recorded up there. So we love you. Have a great night and talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.